In this video, we're finishing up the TryHackMe pre-security path by walking through Windows. This is a three-part series, and by the end of this, we should have a strong grasp of Windows. So let's dive right on it. First, as a precursor, you can walk through this on your own on TryHackMe. I highly encourage you to do so. There are some interactive labs and challenges that you can do, and it also gamifies the learning and gives you something a bit more applicable to do as you're watching this video. Now, what is Windows? You're probably very familiar with what Windows is. In fact, you're probably watching this video right now on a Windows computer if you're not watching it on your phone. Windows is the most used operating system in the world, and it's gone through so many iterations, and it's been around for decades. And so, as you can probably imagine, in the security world, it's notorious for vulnerabilities, but that's not necessarily Windows' fault. It's really just a symptom of how widespread its use is and how much attention attackers give to it simply because of its widespread use. That's basically to say that if Windows or Mac OS was the most used operating system in the world, then those would probably be flush with vulnerabilities as well that we know of. Now, the most recent version of Windows is actually Windows 11, and it mentions here that Windows 11 is current and live, but Windows 10 is probably going to be the most widely used at-home operating system. Sometimes you'll come across Windows 8, and other times you might even come across Windows 7 or Windows XP. In fact, it's not even unheard of for Windows Vista, even when this is filmed in 2022, to still be used. So it's frightening. Now, real quick, let's walk through the GUI, and you're probably familiar with the GUI, so we're just gonna fly through it. But the main things to keep in mind are, of course, the desktop, the start menu, the search box, the task view, taskbar, toolbars, and the notification area. Again, you're probably already very familiar with what these are, but you can actually personalize your desktop using the settings. The start menu is where you're gonna find pretty much anything that's on your machine. And actually from the start menu, you can use the search bar, and that allows you to basically search your computer. And if it isn't already installed, then it'll actually search the internet for something specific. If you have a favorite app, you can pin it to the taskbar. That's a nice way to kind of shortcut access to different applications that you like. And then of course you'll have the notification area, which will tell you very important messages that you need to know. Now let's talk about the Windows file system, or the new technology file system. As it says on TryHackMe, NTFS is known as a journaling file system. In case of failure, the file system can automatically repair the folders or files on a disk using the information in log files. This also allows for files larger than 4 gigabytes. Imagine not being able to store a file larger than 4 gigabytes. That would be so frustrating. You can also set specific permissions per folder or file, which is great. You can also compress folders and files, which really helps for storage efficiency. And then of course, you can encrypt your files. There's a number of permissions that you can set on a folder or file basis, including read, write, read and execute, list folder contents, modify, and full control. And these are different permissions that you can set on a user by user basis. So say you have a number of users on a specific Windows machine, and you want some to be able to read, some to be able to write, some to be able to modify, etc. These are things that you can do to be able to have some good identity and access management. And you can do all of these on the Properties tab on each file or folder. Now let's talk about Windows System 32, and these are going to be very, very important because this is where your operating system is loaded from. These will include information on all kinds of environment variables that you'll need to be able to use for your operating system and more. So obviously you want to make sure that this is backed up somewhere in case something in here were to be corrupted. Your operating system would probably have a hard time loading. So if you can have your operating system stored on a thumb drive that you can boot from, or a disk that you can recover from, that really wouldn't be a bad idea. Long story short, don't do anything with System 32. Just don't touch it. It is very important, and you don't want to break anything in there, because if you do, yeah, your computer might be broken. Now let's talk about user accounts, profiles, and permissions. And this is where things can get pretty customizable on a per machine basis. Here you can basically create new accounts for new users that will want access to this specific machine, and you can modify their permission set. So maybe you don't want them to have access to every single application, or you want them to have limited access to different applications and folders and files. This is where you can do that. And you can do all of this in the settings tab, where you add a user, and then you basically you specify what kind of user you want them to be, and you allow your computer some time to be able to build that account. If you're running this on a network and maybe you're inside of an Active Directory, this is all stuff that you can tie into Active Directory as well. Another important principle is user account control, and this basically allows a user to run important and admin and administrator tasks without having to be logged in as the administrator. And this basically prevents you from really badly breaking anything on your machine and also giving users too much control on a system. And again, these are all things that you can configure within the settings or the properties tab of a specific user. Next, let's talk about the control panel, because this gives you a lot of flexibility and control over your system, the different devices that your system is using. Really, you want to be pretty familiar with your control panel, especially if you're wanting to like plug something in or you have a driver issue, something like that. We'll kind of break down some of the options that you have within the control panel. You have system and security, network and internet, hardware, programs, user accounts, appearance and personalization, clock and region, and ease of access. And as you can see, within this, there are so many different controls that you have at your disposal. And this really allows you to customize your experience within Windows. Pretty much, if you have any kinds of issues from networking to different devices not working to the time, that you can really modify things within the control panel to try to troubleshoot and get things working again. And finally, that takes us to Task Manager, and this is going to be a great place to be able to identify where your CPU is being utilized and give you the flexibility to kill processes that are taking up too much CPU that you aren't actually using. So if you notice different processes running here in Task Manager that you think might actually even be malicious, then that's something that you can also drill down into. Note that you'll have processes running in the foreground and the background. Basically, that means that if it's in the foreground, then it might be something that you're interacting with, and if it's in the background, then it's something that the CPU is running, but you're not really having to do anything to keep it going. So with that, we're going to jump into phase 2 of Windows in the next video. So either watch that if it's published by now, or walk through the rest of Try Hack Me Pre-Security on the playlist below. So with that, be sure to like this video if it was helpful, and I will see you all next time. Bye.